All right, welcome to Reasons to Believe Portland Chapter Gathering, January 28th, 2023. We are part of an international science and faith ministry. We strive to engage in positive conversations with knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. As a chapter of RTB, we make every effort to help people discover that sound reason and scientific research consistently affirm the truth of the Bible and the good news it reveals. We have a few announcements. All right, so I wanted to update you on Resonate 2023. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Slide? Okay, perfect. Why the Christian story resonates with humanity. It's on February 17th and 18th at George Fox University. Just a reminder that the RTB Portland chapter, along with the George Fox University Apologetics Initiative, has been working with RTB headquarters, Ratio Christi Western Region, Apologetics on Mission, and Confident Christianity to bring apologetics to the Pacific Northwest. Our musician artist is John Guerra, and our topics that the speakers will present: Mary Jo Sharp, Deconstruction and Doubt, Holding on to Faith When Others Are Letting Go; Greg Gansel, Professor of Philosophy at Talbot School of Theology, Deepest Desires in the Christian Story; Fuz Rana, our CEO and president of RTB, will be speaking on God is an Artist. Attendee engagement and interaction is an important goal of Resonate. Our hope is to stimulate dialogue, new awareness, and a sense of community. Therefore, facilitated discussions will follow each presentation. We need more facilitators. So if you're interested, please email me or put it in the chat. Okay, exciting more news, especially for the Portland chapter itself. And I see I can do a new share. This is hot off the press, guys. Okay, and here we go.
Belinda,
Yes.
the George Fox University, is it nearby Portland?
It's about 45 minutes away.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But it is a Christian university, and we haven't had apologetics there, and God has been bringing a lot of work going on out there, and Paul Lorenzini has been helping to plant seeds, so it's exciting. Let's see. So God Revealed, along with Park Place Church in Oregon City, RTB Portland chapter is presenting God Revealed. And the presentation will be on February 19th. Fuz will give a sermon at 11 a.m. And then following this will be a youth and young adult gathering with Fuz. Conversation and Q&A and lunch will be provided. Exciting, Professor Joseph Shelton is inviting students from his class at Clackamas Community College, which is a secular college. So we're excited about that. And then please invite and bring your youth and young adults to this event. So if you know of any churches or maybe in your neighborhood, please bring them to this event. Then we will also have an exclusive evening with Fuz for the RTB Portland chapter on Sunday, February 19th. This will be by invitation only, and details will be sent in the next few days to our email list. If you're interested and not on our list, then let me know in the chat. And also, please consider how you might be able to contribute to our efforts. We need quite a few volunteers in hospitality, maybe manning the RTB table, greeters, and we do need more facilitators because, mind you, I think that God is going to bring a lot of people to that George Fox University event. And right now, most of the people are in the older generation, so we need to make room for the younger guys. And then if you could consider financially contributing to the RTB Portland chapter, as I stated before, headquarters and Fuz have graciously donated his honorarium, but we are in charge of his travel and hotel expenses. So, and also the food for the youth group. So if you're interested, please consider donating to the Portland chapter. Now, following the president.
Belinda,
Yes.
can you tell people how to do that? It's very easy.
Sure. So what you would do is you would go to the RTB main website, click donate, and then fill out the information. And then there's a box that says, why are you donating today? And in that box, type in RTB Portland chapter, and then they will make sure that those funds go to our chapter for use. That sound good, Ben?
You
right.
might point out that the RTB chapter guidelines specifically prohibit the chapters from having a tax deductible donation, a way to do tax deductible donations. So you have to go through RTB headquarters if you want to make it tax deductible.
That's right. Yeah. And so it will be tax deductible if you donate through this means.
Linda, if I can add a little bit to that same topic. If
Sure.
you're using sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Doug.
If you're using one of these charitable managed accounts like Fidelity has, or probably other places, you have one of these accounts where you put money in to get a tax advantage, and then you have to let them manage it. You can, through Fidelity, donate to specifically our chapter, but you've got to be careful to specify and put comments in when you do it. Otherwise, it'll just go generally to RTB. I just recently went through that, and you gotta, it actually can work. I called RTB to see if they got what I did, and they did. Well, actually, no, they didn't. They had to go and reallocate it. But it's a process that that can work, but you got to kind of watch it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right, Doug. The key thing is just making a note in the memo. So you're donating totally like you would, you know, to RTB. You just, in the memo somewhere, you just put the chapter name, and that's the trigger that puts it in that restricted fund.
Great. Now, for the reason we are here today, our very own RTB Portland chapter member, Ben Clifton, joins us today wearing his hat as co-founder and president of Apologetics On Mission. Welcome, Ben. He and his wife, Joey, live in Oregon and have 2 adult children. Ben off-ramped from a career in tech innovation to pursue apologetics ministry, work full-time in 2017. He holds a master's degree in apologetics from Biola University and has traveled and presented extensively, around the world. In fact, he's off to Brazil next week. Along with AOM, Ben accepted the position of RTB Chapters Director in January 2023. Congratulations and welcome, Ben.
Wow, thank you. Am I on?
You're
going?
on.
All right. Well, this is going to be a very unique chapter gathering in many respects. Belinda, you mentioned my AOM hat, and sadly, they haven't arrived yet, but I actually am getting AOM hats to go along with this hat. Now, some of you long timers might recognize this hat. This is the hat that has been passed down, I think, since Bob Stewart, maybe Ken Holtgren, I can't remember, but it's had many an owner. And this is the hat that the chapter coordinator wears. I got it from Catherine. You guys all know Catherine, my immediate predecessor. Anyway, so yes, I do wear 2 hats, and I'm intentionally taking off my RTB chapters coordinator hat for this morning. And if I had my AOM hat, I'd put that on. So it's been, I'll say, it's been great to start getting to know you guys. Kirby, it's great to see your face. We've started having some interactions. I'm coming up to speed. As Belinda mentioned, my previous time, I did spend time being in leadership with the Portland chapter. super grateful to have people like Doug and Belinda come alongside, and then having Belinda for how many years now have you been doing this, Belinda? About 3 or 4? Something
Actually,
like that.
as the president, 2021.
2021. Okay. All right. So a couple years there, and Belinda, you're doing a great job, and I look forward to interfacing with you in this new capacity. So I have perspective both from being a part of a chapter in leadership, but also now on the inside, helping to support all of you wonderful chapter leaders. And earlier on, before we started engaging in some of the conversations about how do we make chapters thrive as an extension of this awesome ministry. So with that said, putting on my AOM hat, really what AOM is all about is taking this great material that we are so blessed with through ministries like RTB, and taking it to regions outside the West where there's much less awareness of apologetics in general and much less accessibility to the kind of resources that we just have at our fingertips. So I'm going to be talking about taking apologetics on mission. It's not going to be a science, this is the latest, greatest, cool reason from DNA or the cosmos. It's not going to be that at all. But hopefully I will inspire you to think outside of the box in terms of how do we put this great material that we have into practice. And I will show you generally why it's needed and how it's being done. And I'm going to give you specifics on how it's actually happening right now with Apologetics on Mission. And I hope that we are just one of many ministries that is doing this. I am in the unique position that when I first started this ministry, RTB was the first major ministry I approached with the idea of partnering with them. And so I met with their executive leadership and got the full thumbs up. Little did I know that the opportunity to join the ministry as a staff member would surface, but I'm super grateful for that. So my plate is quite full, and I'm juggling a couple balls, but it's really wonderful. So with that, I'm going to share my screen here and spend, maybe 20 minutes, a little bit more, just on the background of missional apologetics, what I call missional apologetics, and then I'm going to talk about just some how this is happening right now. And then I'm going to open it up for discussion. I would say Q&A, but I'd like it to be more of a discussion where, after you hear this, maybe you'll have some ideas how it could practically impact you. And trust me, there are lots of ways to go on mission while sitting in your comfy seat in your home office there. So don't think that it's all about packing your bags and getting on flights to Timbuktu. It can be that, but not necessarily. All right, so the title of my presentation here is Missional Apologetics, Why Take Apologetics on Mission and How to Do It. So why missional apologetics? And I should give a little bit of background. Why the reason I am doing this now is because in 2017, for completely different reasons, I traveled to Africa with no intention of doing any apologetics at all. And during that time, I actually did, in presenting my testimony and starting to meet people there, I did encounter people for whom this idea of exploring the great reasons we have to believe in the truth of Christianity really resonated with them. And it was an eye-opening experience for me to say, gosh, my brothers and sisters here in the middle of nowhere in Western Uganda need and want apologetics just as much as I do in Oregon City, Oregon. That was the beginning of my journey. 5 years later, I've been back to East Africa about 10 times on various missions that involve training and equipping and bringing awareness to apologetics, which I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So basically, I think, commending the church, we've done an awesome job in evangelizing through our missions work, right? We're very obedient to fulfilling the Great Commission of going and preaching this gospel to the ends of the earth. And so there are wonderful evangelistic ministries that are going out to the ends of the earth and preaching the good news. And that is wonderful. It's necessary. We've got to keep doing that. On the other hand, my observation, and I think it's borne out by the evidence, is that much less effort is put on defending the very faith that we go and evangelize people into. So we don't spend much time developing and giving answers and contending for the faith through apologetics. Our brothers and sisters beyond the West, and I say beyond the West, I would contend that this is a global problem, because even here in the West, we know that more attention needs to be spent on apologetics. But particularly in developing parts of the world, we need to bolster the evangelism that we're doing a great job in with more apologetics. And that's more crucial now than ever before, and most crucial in the next generation that is emerging. If we hope that, the church that we are planting is going to thrive and succeed in the face of the various challenges that we all face, but they are facing as well. So in a nutshell, missional apologetics seeks to raise up Christian defenders to safeguard our evangelistic efforts. And we want to do that globally. And so that's what missional apologetics is all about. And by the way, feel free to interrupt me with questions as I go. I'll just keep going, but if I see a hand wave or something, I can stop. Okay, so what is the problem? We have a problem, we have a solution, we have a desired outcome. So what is specifically the problem that missional apologetics in general is trying to address? It's this, that outside the West, there is a dangerous lack of awareness and training in defending the Christian faith, that is in apologetics. I'm speaking to apologists, so I don't have to labor over defining that, but there is a lack of awareness and lack of training in apologetics, and it leaves global leaders really unprepared to resist the cultural tide of anti-biblical worldviews that threaten the next generation. Okay, that's really at the core. There's many aspects of it, but for me, it's mostly focused on the next generation and helping leaders to be equipped to be able to address the stuff that the next generation is encountering. And Paul, go ahead, unmute and ask away.
Yeah, my question is, when I think of the tide of anti-biblical worldviews, I think of two categories. I think of one category that is clearly non-Christian and intentionally non-Christian. I think of others that bear the flag of Christianity, but their understanding of Christianity is not what we would define as Christian. And I would say I find this in my own Bible study. I meet weekly with about 12 Christians, and they're very devout. But we've got people in there that refuse to accept that Paul is a legitimate, inspired word of the Bible. We've got people who define salvation limited to Matthew 25, which is, if you give to the poor, you'll be saved. That don't take seriously the Great Commission, that write off the Old Testament as being totally irrelevant. And I get really troubled knowing how to deal with that, because I don't want to get into arguments in my own Bible study, but every time I hear some of these things being said, I cringe. And I just sense that Christian apologetics feels constrained, chilled, about taking that on because we don't want to be accused of being divisive, and we don't want to be accused of being narrow-minded, et cetera, et cetera. So where does that fit into your idea of apologetics?
Can I say
Uh,
something? Can I say something, Paul, first? Paul, what chapter are you in?
Well, I'm in the Portland chapter, but the group I meet with is in Palm Desert.
Palm Desert. Is Palm Desert in
In Palm Desert, California. So yeah, so
Palm Desert, California?
yeah,
Well, let me
we're
tell
across-
you, let me tell you what this is. This is called progressive Christianity. And if you want to go to Alicia Shelter, her video, and there she had a couple of videos, very good. You can see all the characteristic of what you just describing. Once in a while, you need to invite me over to your Palm Desert, and I can kind of map them up a little bit here. Our Bible study are going through this thing called progressive Christianity, not necessarily science-based, but these people who claim themselves as Christian, they are not Christian. This is another gospel. If you go into detail of it, it's called
Yeah.
progressive Christianity.
Yeah, let me jump in here and acknowledge these are really great points. And we're getting more into specifics, which is important, but I don't think we'll have time in this time to dig too deep. Let me just say that in answer to Paul's comment, yes, there is a vast spectrum of concerns, both doctrinally, discernment. There is concerns about contextualized issues specific to a certain region, and then there's the increase of Western secularism coming down the social media pipes. So there's a broad spectrum, huge spectrum of apologetically related issues that need to be dealt with. Trust me, especially in Africa, there is, you think about lack of training in apologetics. Well, there's lack of training in just basic biblical theology. So getting our theology straight is a big challenge, but defending it is a big challenge as well. What missional apologetics is all about is not addressing every possible problem, but addressing this area where we're called to give reasons for why the Christian faith is true and addressing those. So,
Ben,
yeah.
could I ask a quick question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's actually more of a suggestion than a question, and that is, you made a comment that that we're all apologists, so we understand what apologetics is. I don't think that's necessarily a good assumption. Maybe it is for this group, but I think that you ought to give a little bit more explanation of what apologetics is all about.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, my comment there was specifically to this gathering here, just looking at who's already on board. But, when I give this presentation generally, I do give that definition. And it really is two things. One is defending the faith. Apologetics is based on the word apologia, which is giving a defense, giving answers to the truth of why Christianity is true. And then it's also, I would say, this could be polemics, but I think contending for the faith is another aspect of apologetics. So defending against false worldviews and contending for the truth of Christianity. That's what I mean by apologetics. And as we know, there are many flavors of apologetics, and Reasons to Believe is probably the foremost ministry that is specifically addressing the science aspect of apologetics, and but there's many other aspects of apologetics. So let me move on here. So the problem is really manifest here by this picture. And this is true both here at home, but it's increasingly true in the areas beyond the West, where we do our work, and especially to the next generation. And that is that this next generation is being bombarded by Western secularism, being delivered through the very technology that we are using right now on Zoom, the internet, access to YouTube, social media, It's coming from all sides. It's also coming culturally from their background. So in East Africa, there is a lot of kind of synergy between African traditional syncretism between African traditional religion and then Christianity. So parsing all that out and presenting, defending against this onslaught and contending for the truth of the Christian worldview is really what the problem is, and that's what we need to help our brothers and sisters in these regions, help their leaders learn how to do this important work. And they are not very aware of the resources, and they don't have much access to it, and that's why we need to help them out. So the problem kind of falls into multiple buckets. I mentioned false religions and syncretism. There's a lot of cultic work or cultic beliefs in areas beyond the West. There's a lot of, in the guise of Christianity, erroneous doctrine that needs to be corrected. And then there's a lot of syncretism between sort of blending the African traditional religion or the local religions with some form of Christianity. Western secularism is really coming down the pike, as evidenced by, like in Uganda, which is a place that we work. There is now a Ugandan Society of Atheists. Okay, that's a very new thing for a country like Uganda. And they are growing rapidly. They're very well organized. They have lots of resources from Western atheist resources. And the church there is ill-equipped to deal with that. And so we need to help them out. There's a distrust of the Bible, like there is here. There's in the academia, as these young people are going through their education system, they're getting a full dose of what our kids here would get in terms of evolution, in terms of that whole worldview that leads to scientism. And so they're grappling with that. Issues of human identity. What is a woman? What is our sexual identity? These are front and center issues that are starting to become serious concerns in parts of the world that until recently, this has not been something. And it's happening at an accelerated rate relative to how it's happened here at home. And the reason is because of that access to the internet, which is really accelerating these transitions. The problem of evil and suffering in some of the regions is a clear and present issue. People are poor, people are suffering, they don't have access to medical care, and so they endure a lot of suffering. And so how do we answer that in light of a good, powerful, loving God? There's apathy to anything religious. And then finally, there's the culture of entertainment, which beyond the West, they are just really hungry for Western entertainment, and it's fairly getting more and more accessible to them. So all of these factors play into this onslaught that is hitting our brothers and sisters beyond the West, and they are pretty ill prepared to deal with it, especially the next generation who are turning to their parents, turning to their leaders, and not getting satisfying answers. And oftentimes, because the leaders and parents are ill-equipped, they give the wrong answers or no answer at all. So we need to address this problem. So as a result of all of this, not only in the West, but in the global church, too many of the next generation who are raised in the church are abandoning faith as they leave home. I don't have statistics there, but we know how it is here at home, like upwards to 70%, some surveys say, of the next generation are leaving church as they enter into college and enter into their own lives. The same thing is happening beyond the West. They may be a couple years behind us, but it is happening. And so we need to be able to address that. So what is the solution? So the solution, at least part of the solution, is to take apologetics on mission. So the role of missional apologetics is to, first of all, raise awareness that apologetics is even a responsibility of the church and that there are resources available. So raise awareness of apologetics, and then provide accessible training to equip those leaders to engage in that next generation, affirming biblical Christianity and exposing flawed ideologies that their next generation are facing. Why am I spending so much time focused on the next generation? It's because typically in developing nations, the population, number one, is very young. The demographics are such that there are a lot of young people, and those young people are soon going to be the leaders in their communities, and they're the ones that are most exposed and most vulnerable to the false worldviews that they're being inundated with. So if we're going to focus on one particular demographic, I really think it's that emerging generation, maybe high school up through college. If we do this, and when we do this, and we've seen this, then global communities of leaders are going to be mobilized and equipped to contend for the faith in Jesus Christ and empower the next generation to do the same. So not only do we want to train the leaders so that they're equipped to speak into the lives of the next generation, but in doing so, we want to train the next generation themselves so that they can do the same thing and maintain a strong and healthy church community in their regions. So that's really, in a nutshell, what missional apologetics is all about. And I could certainly hear an argument to say that this, taking apologetics on mission applies equally well to going to your local university or even your local church on mission, as much as it does to going to Western Uganda or someplace like that. But really, there's a huge need beyond the West, and that's what we want to do. So what are the elements? I mean, let's start turning this into some practicalities. So elements of this missional apologetics thing is, first and foremost, bringing awareness to the responsibility of the church. We quote 1 Peter 3:15 all the time. We quote Jude 3 all the time about giving an answer and contending for the faith. That often is not heard very loudly against the backdrop of the Great Commission work. So we need to raise awareness that apologetics is even a thing. Like Kirby, I think, encouraged me to, even defining what apologetics is a first step. So once we get some awareness, and I'll say personal testimony, once people's eyes are exposed to this, and once the vision of wrestling with doubts, seeking good answers, knowing that there are good answers and the good resources, it is a huge harvest field of people not only hungry and excited for apologetics, but really turning to that as a source of strengthening their own personal faith. So there's a lot of engagement, a lot of excitement. So now the appetite's wet, we got to feed them. So training and resources, that's number one thing, is leaders need to be trained on basic apologetics. And they need to be resourced and pointed to good apologetics resources that they can continue to grow in their individual walk and continue to be able to have things that they can turn to share with others. So then it moves to mentoring. The leaders that we work with through AOM, as we raise awareness and train them and provide them resources, they need to know tactically and practically, how do we go about doing this? Our first graduates, I'll talk a little bit more specifics, but we have some graduates of a training course that we do, and they are chomping at the bit to form a legitimate apologetics ministry in their region. And they're asking all kinds of really good questions about how do we go about doing this. So mentoring both on a personal level, on an intellectual level, and then on a ministry level is really important once we get them trained up. Collaboration. We got to do this together. And there are so many opportunities to collaborate, both with young ministries that are starting up, with partners on the ground that have access to people who need apologetics but don't necessarily provide apologetics. There's awesome opportunities to partner in collaboration. And really our ultimate goal is to reach a level of self-sustainability, where these regions where we go on mission with apologetics and start training the leaders, we want to see those leaders grow to the point where they are the ministries, they are the RTBs of Uganda or Brazil, and they are able to perpetuate and multiply what we've been part of starting up. We plant the seeds, we help them grow, but we want to see that multiplication, which really means self-sustainability. So our end goal is always thinking, how do we create communities of apologetics, apologetically minded leaders who are equipped, who are trained, who are running ministries, but also are self-sustaining, so that they are not limited by the generosity or the resources of the West to do what they're called to do. Okay, so those are some elements. Each one of these has more, many more facets and depth to them, but that's just an overview. So what are the types of vehicles that we use to do this? What practically, how does this look like? So I'll just outline a few of the particular channels or vehicles that we use to do this work. And by the way, Belinda, I'm happy to make these slides available to people if they want them afterwards. So short-term missions, actually going and having in-person meetings, building relationships, planning events, that's critical. And so going on mission, getting on a plane is a huge part of it. When we're on the ground there, what we do first is host what we call a leader summit. So we'll bring together leaders in those communities. And if we're lucky, we'll find some people who are already engaged in apologetics to one degree or another. But we'll also bring aspiring people, church leaders, people in academia, people who, for one reason or another, have landed on apologetics, and we become aware of them. We bring them together, and there's really a key point that we are trying to do, and we are giving these leaders a platform to tell us what they need, tell us what the challenges and questions are in their regions. We're using those summits to raise awareness, not only generally speaking about apologetics, but also oftentimes in these regions that they don't know each other. And it takes an event, it takes somebody, a third party from outside often, to bring them together and make them aware that even within their region, there are people doing the same thing, an opportunity for collaboration. And I'll give an example of how that works. I saw that Paul, I think, raised his hand. Paul, did you want to have a quick question?
Well, yeah, just a quick question. A lot of this is all about training an army of apologists.
Absolutely.
So they can go do this. My question is, what's the process for creating venues where the army can engage?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let me get to that because it's all part of this. So conferences. So this is a perfect venue for raising awareness, bringing communities together, communities not only of leaders, which is really our focus. I should pause here to say that strategically, we are more interested as a Western ministry going on mission to engage with the leadership of our brothers and sisters. We are more interested in equipping them to then reach their communities than we are for us going directly to those communities. So while we will do that, it's mostly to raise awareness and provide a context for what, Paul, you were just asking. What is the venue? Well, we will host conferences where some 500 people will, easily 500 people will come to these conferences, and they will get a taste of apologetics. And their awareness will be raised up. In that crowd, there'll be a handful that really are the key leaders that will take it beyond that will actually go through a training course that will eventually aspire, and I'll get to this in a second, they'll aspire to get some academic background so that they're actually academically credentialed to do this work, and ultimately to form local ministries focused on apologetics. That's really the end goal. So conferences, in answer to your question, Paul, are the primary vehicle and primary venue to raise awareness and get this started. Courses and degrees are really addressing the core need once the awareness is raised, and that is we've got to train them and equip them on basic apologetics. And then finally, mentoring them through ministry development so that they can aspire to that self-sufficiency where we become not the driving force to make it happen, but we become the people that they invite into what they're doing and how it's thriving there. So let's see, the tools that we use. Oh my gosh. We were talking before we actually started of the power of Zoom just for chapter meetings and what that has transformed the way we do even chapter meetings within RTB as a ministry. Well, extend that to the concept that, geographical distances are completely changed because now we're talking about a Zoom link, right? We're talking about time zones. And so the accessibility of being able to come together through tools like Zoom are critical for relationship building, for networking, for planning, and for training. And I have specific examples of that. In fact, I'll just talk about that right now since it's front and center. So before this meeting, I was just on a Zoom meeting where it was the third class of a 16-class course that AOM is teaching. We call it the Introduction to International Apologetics. We have students from Uganda, we have students from Rwanda, we have students from Brazil, and we actually have 3 students from the Pacific Northwest. And we're very strategic about offering this course to people within the West, but these leaders are critical to that. So they are going through a 16-week course. They will get a certificate afterwards, and they will have covered, it's a college level course. It's an informal certificate, but they will have covered the basics of apologetics, including, I think there's about 3 courses that are very focused on science apologetics. And for that, of course, I use RTB stuff. So all of that is empowered because of Zoom and because of access to the internet. And that access is growing very rapidly. And as we use it here locally for our chapter meetings, so too we can use it internationally and really extend the reach that we have to do this work. YouTube is an amazing resource, and so kind of curating that and pointing people to good presentations, good debates, and good training resources is really awesome. Traveling and doing in-person development is critical. You can do a lot of things on Zoom, but you can't hug somebody. And in apologetics, maybe we sometimes neglect that personal touch, but it's very important in long-term relationships. I think we were talking about hybrid meetings and the need to, I think David was saying how they've oriented their chapter meetings so that they come together sometimes just to have a meal together. And that is, the equivalent of that for missional apologetics is going and connecting with people on the ground. Churches, of course, are great platforms for doing the conferences. A lot of them are very supportive and excited to see these kind of events happening for their congregations, but also in the academy. And really, as we're talking about the long-term goal of building pillars that ultimately are the centers of gravity for self-sustaining apologetics communities there, it's the academy that's probably at the tip or at the top of the chain. And so being able to host conferences and seminars and courses in the academy is a great tool. And again, surprisingly accessible. There is a lot less reluctance to bring religious content onto the campuses of developing nations, at least in our experience. So we have a wonderful opportunity there. And so let me give a little bit more specifics on how our ministry is actually doing this. What I've said so far is fairly generic, and any ministry can do this. And I know that ministries like RTB, they travel internationally and they do a lot of this stuff, as well as a lot of the other great ministries. One of my missions in 2018, I had the privilege of joining forces with Greg Kokel from Stand to Reason, and together we went to Western Uganda and did this work. Reasonable Faith, another great ministry, has chapters all over the world, and they are doing similar stuff. So, but let me tell you about how we're doing it at AOM. Number one, we focus on raising awareness and just introducing churches and church leaders and the professors in the academy about the importance and the responsibility that we have to commit some of our training and some of our shepherding to apologetics, to giving answers for our hope. We need to equip them in a variety of forms, and then we need to encourage and mentor them. And so that's really the components. What does this look like specifically? We go on short-term missions. So Belinda said that I'm going to Brazil on Tuesday, and that is the very first time that AOM will be visiting Brazil. And really what we're doing there is developing relationships. We will do an informal leaders summit where we'll listen to the needs that the leaders there express in the area of apologetics, and be much better equipped to see whether this is something that, whether this is a region that we can be of service to. And I think we'll find that it is.
Sorry, Ben, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What does AOM stand for?
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologetics on Mission.
Okay,
That's the name of the ministry that I formalized last year, and that I continue to run as a second job to my chapter's work. So AOM is Apologetics on Mission. Then we, yeah, go ahead, Doug. I see you just raised your hand.
Yeah, maybe for your sake, you might want to clarify your relationship with RTB. Are you, I mean, there might be an assumption here that you're a sub ministry of RTB. Maybe, probably not. I don't know.
Yeah,
You
no.
want to clarify that.
No, that's a great point. So the clarification is that we have no formal relationship with RTB other than I happen to be on staff with RTB. I have a partnership. So if you go and look at RTB's website, we are listed as one of their partner ministries. It's a fairly informal relationship, and our objective is just to be, as we go, as AOM goes globally, we will use RTB materials when we do science apologetics. So that's really the relationship. But nothing formal. And I would say that this transition for me into chapter leadership with the ministry just kind of came out of the blue, and I couldn't resist the opportunity to serve the chapters in this capacity. So I'm excited to do both. But I do, like I said in the beginning, I do have to swap hats to make that clear. Let's see, Introduction to International Apologetics. This is our basic course, and it's really the first serious step that we ask the leaders that we engage with to take. Our first course was finished last November. We graduated 8 students. This course, we're on the 3rd class of the 16-week course. We'll have 25 students. And so it's growing very rapidly. And the graduates of that course are prepared to actually start using the material that we've given them in their communities to begin apologetics work on their own. Some of those students, we hope to provide further training, and ultimately a small fraction of them, we hope to handhold them through some serious academic credentialing. Let's see. I see Kirby asked a question. Have I encountered any issues with young earth missionaries overseas? Oh, absolutely. So just like here, we have a diversity of views, and young earth is always a consideration. I would say though that it's that view is very, I mean, in general, the views held from an apologetic standpoint, generally speaking, are very thinly formed. So while they may have a gravitation, they may just, by osmosis, embrace a young earth position. It's not held with very high vigor. They don't have a lot of basis for it. And so people are very willing to engage in the conversation. As far as the missionaries there, yeah, just like here, we have missionaries with a young earth bent, and same approaches, same challenges overseas as we do here. So it is a consideration and a concern.
Well, the related question, which you haven't gotten to yet, is is the emerging generation overseas well educated? So are you finding that that the kids basically don't have any education anyway, so science really doesn't mean much to them?
So I would say that our experience is that they do have a fairly good education, and especially the students that get to the college level. I've always been pleasantly surprised with their academic background, and so yeah, and which makes the relevance of the type of apologetics that we're used to fairly relevant. Let me give you an example. So an area that we work in Western Uganda is in a town that has a fairly substantial medical school. It's one of the larger medical schools in Uganda. And they're attracting students from all over Africa. And because we're partnered with a church there on the ground who does a lot of great outreach to that university, we've got a lot of doctors, nurses, pharmacists, anything associated with the medical profession, IT people. And so they have a good background, and particularly these students have a good background in the sciences, and really, as you'd imagine, in medicine. So we've actually had some guest speakers who are doctors, encourage them and speak to them. And I know from this conversation, a lot of you guys have that medical background too. So that's a specific example of, they're fairly well educated, and especially the ones that are going to be the next generation leaders. We can assume that they've got a decent education, and you can also assume that with that comes the whole gamut of Western secularism. And that is why it's important for us to try and at least head off some of the danger of those leaders abandoning their faith as they go through their education, because they're going to be the next generation influencers and leaders there. I'm going to move fast here. Leader summits are a great way to listen and a great way to give leaders there a platform to raise awareness to their neighbors about what's going on. Seminars at universities, conferences, at churches are all great ways to raise awareness. And from that awareness, we develop the relationships that then land us with the leaders who we can take through our course and get them going on a trajectory. Partnerships with local ministries and academies are critical. We really want this to be, we want to be catalysts in this whole process. We want to be instigators to kind of rattle people's cages about the importance of apologetics, but ultimately we want to come alongside the local leaders and local ministries to do the work. We want to provide a pathway to academic degrees in apologetics. And let me just speak a little bit to that. So as it is today, you guys can imagine accessibility, even in the US, there's only a limited handful of places where somebody can go and get a master's degree that's specifically in apologetics. And in the developing world, there's even fewer options. And in fact, in Africa, I'm not aware, except for South Africa, I'm not aware of any pathway through a seminary or a university to get a specific degree in apologetics. So what that means is that if somebody there wants that level of training, and trust me, they do want it and they do need it, and a lot of these leaders aspire to that with the goal of being pillars in their communities that are equipped with apologetics. The only way to do that is to get it through a Western institution. And you can imagine the challenge there, not so much logistically anymore, because so many degrees are offered online, but it's cost. They're just prohibitively expensive. There's just no way that a student from Kenya or Rwanda could aspire to go through a typical Biola master's program. It's just cost prohibitive. So that either means that somebody in the US has got to foot the bill, which is fine, but it does create that dependency for growth. It's gated by our generosity to be able to get them through those programs. So what that means is that ultimately, strategically, we've got to get the academies on the ground offering courses, offering good accredited degree programs in apologetics for their people there. And we're at the very beginning stages of this. Let me give you a little bit of good news on that front. Many of you are probably familiar with SES, one of those handful of good sources for an academic degree in apologetics. They've recently instituted a tuition discount program that adjusts their tuition based on a sort of cost of living index relative to the countries. What that means is that for a country like Uganda, it means that there's a serious discount that they offer for their degree programs, and it puts it much more in range of somebody in Africa who wants to pursue that. It is an online degree, so it's much more accessible. And so we're actively working with SES to connect some of our students with their program there. That's not a long-term solution because it's still expensive. Long-term, we are in the early stages of working with them to say, hey, can you partner with us, and can we introduce you to the academies that we know and have relationships with, and can you help them develop in partnership with SES a degree program of their own? We'd love to see that happen with Biola as well. So that's in the early stages, but there's hope there. Net is we've got to get some degreed apologists there on the ground. And then mentoring and apologetics ministry. What do you do with all this? How do you transform all this training and all this desire into a fruitful ministry? And then really a lot of the work is just networking and catalyzing global communities together and making people aware of all the resources. So good example, and why I love being able to wear an RTB hat and being associated with RTB is just making these leaders aware of a ministry like RTB that has just a wealth, as you guys know, a wealth of resources. Go to the website, go to the YouTube channel, tune into all their media. Oh my gosh. And those are critical resources. They just don't know about it. They are unaware of it, and we've got to make them aware. And ultimately, I'd love to see, Fuzz and Hugh go to, Uganda and do a seminar there. They would be most welcome. Okay. Gosh, what time is it? How am I doing, Belinda?
It's 11:10. How much?
Oh, I'm just going to show, okay, the purpose here of these video clips. I want to transition into what does this really look like on the ground? It's pretty exciting. It's one thing to talk about this, but when you've got a group of 25 students from all over the world tuning in and listening to a college level course on worldviews, or a college level course on, the philosophical arguments for the existence of God, or dealing with the problem of evil, or whatever the topic, it's pretty exciting. And then being able to actually go there and be face to face with these communities is really exciting. So let me see. I am going to try and share my screen and just show you a few video clips here. By the way, I should mention, we started this ministry as Adventurous Apologetics. About halfway through, we realized that that was a cumbersome name. We renamed and rebranded to Apologetics On Mission. So some of these videos still bear the old branding, so bear with it. So let me just show you a few clips here. To grow apologetics in their regions. That's what we do, and we did this on our very first mission, which you're going to hear about right now. All right, safe and sound here in Entebbe at the Banana Village. Getting all set up with our banners. So this was a leaders summit that we did. We gathered together about 25 leaders from Uganda, Kenya, busy schedule for Friday, Saturday, Rwanda, and Sunday. I'm just going to show you a few clips of what transpired. And let me just speak to each of those goals. So we want to raise awareness, we want to build relationships, and we want to develop some concrete action.
And tonight you will be hearing about Africa Center for Apologetics Research.
I represent a ministry called Apologetics Kenya.
We were really honored to have John Njoroge from RZIM. Great speaker, wonderful addition to the team.
And how we can be able to benefit from their gifting, their talent. We are meant to be a body that can be able to work together and not to compete.
Finally got to meet Frank and David from Come and See Rwanda, and hopefully going to meet them in Rwanda in July. Great to meet Shafiq from Africa Renewal University, key player in the Academy for Apologetics.
At the very core, at the very heart of our...
Because of time, I'm going to fast forward through this. This is available on YouTube. I can share a link, but here's some pictures from a high school that we got to visit. All right, that just gives you a little taste. Got a few pictures here, I think, in my presentation that I'll also share. I mentioned, whoopsie, I mentioned the power of Zoom. We've been talking about this. So these are two screenshots here. One was a conference that we held online with about 30 students, 30 people from Nigeria. And it was about a 4-hour conference. And there were a variety of topics presented, both by apologists here in the US, but also some Nigerian apologists. So there's great work happening in Nigeria. And it's by the power of Zoom that we're able to invite them all together on a single platform to learn together. This shot here, if you can see my mouse, that was actually from about an hour and a half ago. So I mentioned that we are teaching this Introduction to International Apologetics course, and this was class 3. It was on worldviews, and so this is a tool that we're able to give these students a basic background of apologetics, and that's really the first step. So yeah, that's kind of what it looks like in real motion. So let's see, am I still sharing my screen? Hang on. Oopsie, I unshared too soon.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Yeah, hang on. I'm not done yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No problem. I will be done here real soon. I just wanted to share a couple pictures here. These are a couple of our students that graduated in November, and they're already out in the field. These guys are young doctors, and they have the privilege of going to high schools and speaking to the students. And when these crowds, I mean, they get like hundreds of students, and they're able to open the students' eyes to this idea of, seeking good answers for the faith that they have. They're also, because they're doctors, they get to do medical clinics. And so they're able to use that platform as well to reach people when they are in that, suffering, when they're undergoing some illness or something. So they're able to treat their bodies, but also minister to their souls, and they're equipped with answers. And like I said, the problem of evil and suffering, particularly suffering, is a huge one. Resources, this is a pile of books that I brought last time that I went, and you can recognize some of them. There's a lot of RTB books in the mix there, and those are circulated around and devoured. So, all right, so gosh, what can you do? Well, the first thing you could do is just connect with us. So just go to our website, Apologetics on Mission. There is a connect thing. In fact, I will just navigate you as to how you might do that, so it's clear. So let's see, here we go. Share my screen. Not that you need this. So go to Apologetics on Mission. Here's our website. You can page through that. You'll see a lot of familiar stuff that I did for this presentation. Hit the connect button, your name and your email, and some check boxes here, and we'll circle back to you. We are really looking for just across the board on how we can grow what we're doing. I'll say that we are faced with more opportunities to do this than we know what to do with. So we're just a small ministry right now, and we need a lot of help. So we're looking for people who would like to maybe teach a class, take one of our classes and teach it. We're looking for people who have a special presentation that they would love to give to their brothers and sisters across the world. And we're looking for some administrative help running the ministry. And then last but not least, we are looking for financial support. So you can do that on our website. And of course, we're looking for prayer. And we're actually in the process of providing we really believe in the power of prayer in all this. And we are working on some real tangible ways that people can come in and like adopt one of our students for the duration of their class, and then commit to praying for them when they're in session. So if any of this is interesting, just fill out that form. That's the first level of connection. A lot of you know me and know how to get a hold of me other ways. So love to hear from you. So, all right. So now I'm done, Belinda.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I'm
thank you.
happy to answer questions and whatever.
Cool. Thank you, Ben, so much. I just want to remind everybody that we're recording this interactive discussion / Q&A as well. So yeah, just you can either raise your hand in the reactions tab, or just go ahead and speak up. And it looks like David is ready to ask a question. Go, David.
Hey, thank you, Ben. Thank you for your presentation. Since you have a lot of experience in this kind of apologetic training in the field, in mission field, now that you wear another hat, which is chapter director at RTB, I have an observation of, in general, the RTB chapters. If you notice carefully, we are a bunch of old people. Okay.
Speak for
and that's true. I mean, and in all the chapters. So how, and this is something that I think your expertise in this area can help RTB. How do we inspire, train the next generation of apologists, especially in the areas of science, here in the United States? Do you have any thought on that?
I do. So first off, let me give some context. So my personal strategy as I'm coming into the ministry from the inside, number one, I'm learning the lay of the land internally and not coming at it proposing, okay, we're going to make a whole bunch of changes and everything. So basically, I'm speaking to you guys as chapter leaders. Give me some grace and a little bit of time to do things. Just make sure we're supporting the chapters kind of as they are. Having said that, I totally empathize with the point you're making, and I would love to see the whole ministry, strategically address that issue. I'm going to, instead of answering it myself, which I do have a lot of ideas, I'm going to ask Belinda to share on this issue what she is actually able to do as a chapter leader just here and now. So Belinda, what you're doing right now is answering that question. So why don't you share?
Yeah. So with this, we learned about George Fox University starting an apologetics initiative. And so I reached out to that particular person through Paul Lorenzini, and just threw out the idea, hey, can RTB Portland chapter come alongside you and help you with this apologetic initiative? And that's how Resonate 2023 came about. And to have Fuzz be able to come to this conference has been such a blessing. And so our goal really is to come alongside the apologetics initiative at George Fox University. And Fuzz will actually be meeting with STEM faculty during this time at a separate part of the conference, and just kind of get to know them, and also be able to find out not just what we can do for them, not that, but actually ask them, okay, what has worked for you to reach, your STEM students. And so we're in partnership, with them. We hope that will come to fruition, developing networks, increasing the scholar community within the faculty there. But then also, I would like to be able to meet with the STEM Student Council there, and really focus in on STEM students and develop a relationship, what their needs are, and come alongside them and offer like either some mentoring or really ask them, what kind of questions do you have, and start just build relationships with the young people. And then, of course, we also are reaching out to our community college and seeing the professors there that have questions. They're working with secular students. So what kind of questions do they have? And then, I mean, God really brought this whole thing in, God Revealed in Oregon City, and it will just open up the door to the youth in that area. So that's the other thing that we're trying to do.
Yeah, David, you're bringing up, this is touching on a lot of strategic, direction for RTB. And so what I'll say is nothing you guys aren't familiar with, but a lot of emphasis is being placed on building and growing the scholar community. And the reason that, a critical reason there is just to provide an infrastructure, a context, especially on campuses in which there's a community both for those scholars, but also for student groups that might happen on campus. I think we have the opportunity to partner with other ministries like Ratio Christi, who, their main target is the university campuses. And Belinda's done a great job working with the chapters here. In fact, one of the outcomes of this whole apologetics initiative at George Fox looks like there's going to be a Ratio Christi chapter forming there. And those are great opportunities for RTB to come in and present, our particular part of the whole puzzle from a STEM, especially addressing those STEM people. Then longer term, I think chapters, oh my gosh, we have such opportunity to reach the youth groups within our church. So that's one approach. And reach out to be partners in these events like Belinda's doing, that are hosted by a university. Now, I think for, all out, conferences like what's happening at George Fox, you're probably looking at Christian colleges. And honestly, the Christian colleges need probably even more than the secular ones. But the secular ones we can reach through organizations like Ratio Christi. So I don't know how that all pans out in exactly what we do, but I do really applaud the sentiment there. We've got, just like our focus as AOM, as Apologetics on Mission, is really focused on that next generation and equipping leaders to talk to that next generation. I think we need to do that. And in doing so, we've got to be answering the questions that they're actually asking. So.
And I just want to add one more. I had forgotten, but Christian Medical and Dental Association, since there's quite a few healthcare professionals on this call, but I've also joined them, and I think that that would be a great avenue for us to be able to reach the students that are interested in medicine or the healthcare fields. To mentor them and offer our services also in small groups, develop relationships. James, I think I saw your hand up. Did you have a question, James? Maybe not. Okay. Anybody else?
Me and my wife here, I'm besides the chapter director here in San Diego. We are involved in several ministry, and you just mentioned about CMDA. We open our house, and in next month, we're gonna invite a local UCSD medical student to our house to just have a dinner and a mentorship talk. And I think in those occasions, I will mention it. I also have several opportunities to run into different ministry, like Every Student Send, and they come across about 7,000 students every year, go through their app and website in search of a campus ministry, and they are in search of apologetic material. And I can't help but I'm going to try to connect them with Reason to Believe and several other things that they are looking for the content. So this will be area that we can help them. Anyway, just bring it up for ideas.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, I think that my personal testimony is that I didn't come to faith until I was 33. I'm an engineer, and so much of when I discovered RTB after I became a Christian, my question was always, gosh, where was this when I needed it when I was younger? So don't underestimate the power that, like, say, a little book like this can have on the life of somebody going through engineering or science or anything when they're faced with that the worldview that they are. So yeah, I mean, reaching that next generation in all its fronts. I think RTB has a unique role, especially to the STEM students.
One other point is that in our conversations with the younger generation, or with anybody really, is to take the approach that, yeah, we're going to be ready for the answer. We're apologists, right? That's what we do. But to really engage that person, to be more curious about them and where they are at, what questions do they have, so to ask more open-ended questions, and not in your head be ready to, like, okay, I know the answer to that, but actually really just engage them, discover more about them, be curious, and think of it more as a long-term relationship, building that. And that's actually what we're doing in this particular conference. So we're intentional about this. So we are going to have the speakers present 45 minutes. And then immediately after that, we have a 30-minute facilitated discussion. And I'll be training the facilitators to take off their apologetics hat and to instead put on a coach kind of approach, where you're actually trying to draw out what the attendees are interested in, what their thoughts are, and to hopefully help them develop a new awareness based on the material that they just listened to. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. And I think that can help maybe sustain a relationship with somebody interested in finding out more about God and Jesus. we have 1 minute left, and if you need to drop off, feel free to drop off. I want to thank Ben again for this presentation, and thank all of you for joining us. We have a guest from around the world here as well, and any of the guests who are joining us later at a future date. But want to honor your time. I'll keep the chat open and Zoom open, so you're welcome to stay.